Hello YouTube, welcome back to another wonderful video from me, Knife Ali, in the Finale Guitar Studio in Sheffield. What we're going to be doing today is kind of almost the end of this little folk backing series I've been doing. I want to start working on a few other things. I'm going to make some YouTube videos about other subjects like jazz and metal and rock, and also working on a few side projects at the moment. I've got a lot on at the minute, so trying to kind of wrap this one up a little bit. I will come back to it though. If you've got any requests for anything, do ask and I will always make them. If I've got spare time, which I usually do here and there somewhere, I can always find time to make a little video. But yeah, what we're going to be doing today, this is just a little bit of a tips and tricks video. This is for when you've got to the point where you can stick your 1, 4 and 5 and related minors in the right places, and you're sort of looking for a way to make it a bit more interesting. There's a few things you can do. I'm just going to cover some of the very basic ones that will make what you're doing sound a little bit more jazzy and maybe annoy some traditionalists in folk sessions, but that's all good. The first thing I'm going to say is that if you're playing chords 1, 4 and 5 and related minors, which you'll know about if you've watched the previous videos and you've practiced a bit, a good thing to do is you can actually swap them all for the right kind of 7 chord. I'll tell you what I mean by the right kind of 7 chord. You will probably realise by now that a chord is made up out of notes 1, 3 and 5 of the scale. That's what makes a chord sound like a chord. The most important notes are notes 1 and 3, because note 3 tells you whether that chord is minor or major. If you don't know about this, don't worry too much, you don't really need to, but I'm just very quickly running over it for those who are interested. With a 7 chord, you've got notes 1 and 3, and you've also got note 7 of the scale. Now, if you're in a major key, note 7 is going to be a semitone below the first note, the key note. So let's say we were in D major, note 7 would be C sharp. If you play a chord that's made out of D, F sharp, A and C sharp, you've got D major 7, and you don't really need the 5th note in there. You can do without it, but that's by the by, you'll have it in most shapes you'll learn. But if you flatten the 7th, you get what's called a dominant 7 chord, and when you hear a dominant 7, your ear automatically wants that chord to resolve down a 5th. So if I play an A dominant 7, or just an A7 chord as most people will call it, the next chord you want to hear is a D. So if you're in D major and you're going 5-1 at the end of a section, swap your chord 5, that's your A chord, swap it to an A dominant 7. So that will sound like this. And that sounds a lot more finished than... There's not a lot of difference to it, it's just this one note has changed. But yeah, that sounds good. You can let's say we're in the key of D major again. Your D major chord at the beginning, change that to a D major 7 chord. You can look up the shapes for these on the interwebs. A D major 7 chord sounds like this. So where you'd be going that's your D major 7, so where you'd be playing a G major chord, you can swap that to a G major 7 shape. That'll sound fine as well. And I've already said where you'd be playing your chord 5, that's your A. Swap that to a dominant 7, which will make your ear want it to resolve back to the D, which will neatly finish off the ends of your sections. The next thing I'm going to say is when you're playing your related minors, so if for the B part you wanted to play a B minor instead of a D major chord at the end of the chord, for example, you could swap that to a B minor 7 chord, same as the other thing. So where you'd be going D, 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 G, G, A, you'd swap to B minor, B minor, B minor, B minor, G, G, A, and you can do it with B minor 7, so that would sound like this. Yeah, you can swap that with any of the related minors you would use. So where you'd use your E minor in D major, you could swap that E minor chord to an E minor 7 chord, and so on and so forth. This also works in minor keys. If you're playing in a minor key, you can put a 7 in any of the chords, so long as it's the same. So where you'd be playing E minor, you play an E minor 7. Where you'd be playing C major, you play a C major 7. And the fifth is the same deal again. The fifth chord, but in a minor key, the fifth chord. So let's say we're in E minor, the fifth chord would be B minor. So you play a B minor 7, and so on and so forth. The reason that works is because the 5 chord, if it's a minor chord, a minor 7 chord already has a flattened 7th like a dominant 7 chord, so you still want it to resolve down a 5th, so that's fine. Don't worry too much about that if you don't know about the music theory of it, it doesn't really matter. Just remember that you can swap all your chords to a minor 7 of the same type as the chord, unless you're in a major key, in which case your 5 chord has to be a dominant 7. I hope that makes sense. And one final tip and trick for this video is if you are in a major key, I'm going to use G major as an example for this one. Instead of swapping your 5 chord, which would be D in G major, to a D7, swap it to a different dominant chord. A D9 works nicely, for example. You can look up the shapes for these. A D9 chord has got note 1, D, note 3 of the scale of D, which is F sharp. It's got a flattened 7th, which is what makes it a dominant chord, so that's going to be C, and then it's also got the 9, which is, so if 8 is the same as 1, that's going to be D, so the 9 is going to be E, so you get this noise, and that sounds wicked in folk backing. So let's say in G major you'd be going G, C, D, G, C, D, go G, C, D9 back to G, and even better is G major 7, C, D9 back to G major 7. That sounds lush. I'll demo that if you know. That wasn't it. Yeah. So that's my tips and tricks for the day. Remember that you can always swap to a 7 chord of the same type. So G major can become G major 7, C can become C major 7, D has to be a dominant 7 because it's the 5th chord of that key. And also you can swap your 5 chord to a 9 chord if you're in a major key. That will sound really nice. Or you can in fact swap it to any other dominant chord as well. But play about with the other ones and see which ones work in which situations, because sometimes it'll sound better than other times, but the 9 is always a safe bet. So yeah, I'll leave it up to you to play about with those. If you'd like more information on why these things work, learning a bit more about the theory, I can show you all sorts of mad chord shapes and all sorts of crazy things you can do with them. We're sort of getting into the realm of jazz a little bit, so I'm going to make a series about that quite soon, which will really be a bit more interesting. And also, it won't be too in-depth, but you can get a lot more in-depth with it if you have a free Skype lesson for life.